Welcome to the Helix webinar series. Today's session is on Helix on-prem containers, recent updates and futures. This is the second session of today, so hopefully some of your colleagues may have joined this morning's session. We do have the opportunity to take questions, so there's quite a lot to cover today. I will introduce Bhavesh shortly, and he'll do his formal introduction. Just a couple of reminders, there is the Q&A section of Zoom. If you have any questions during the presentation that he's going to run, please put your questions in there. We have a team of panelists that will answer those, and we will have roughly 15 to 20 minutes at the end where we will take some of those questions to the live Q&A, and you have the opportunity to also speak with us live. So Bhavesh, I'm now going to hand over to you to get us started.
Thank you, Sam. Good evening, everyone. Good morning, everyone, and good afternoon. So thanks for participating in this webinar. Let's talk about, briefly, I'll just speak about me, and then we'll move to the session, right? So I'm working out of India. I'm working as a lead product manager, managing Helix ITSM on-premise and Helix ITOM on-premise solutions, along with working as a product manager for HDM. I'm sure most of you are aware of it. Currently, I am leading the Helix on-premise ITSM ITOM portfolio at the installer level under my mentorship and leadership of Raquel in EMEA, who's here in this call. Moving further, I just quickly want to talk about a legal notice that the information that would be shared in this session is purely confidential and owned by BMC, and is being provided with the understanding that without any prior approval, any prior consent from written consent of BMC, this information is not disclosed to any third party or any vendor to make use of this information for any other purpose than which BMC is intended. We'll be talking in this presentation, in this webinar, a bit about what is currently available for our Helix ITSM and ITOM solutions, and what are the plans and future directions for FY25. We will be talking about our latest current on-premise support policy, and last but not the least, we would be talking about the product security policy, which will be led by our colleague from product security group at BMC. All the plans, the future product plans and the release we would talk about here in this current discussions are currently come with the tag that they are all the tentative plans, and these are being tentative in the nature, and any assurance whether these plans will result in a future release cannot be assured from BMC. These future plans should not be reviewed as any commitments on the BMC part and should just not be relied upon in any customer purchase discussion. Okay, I'll switch off my camera for better bandwidth and audio. All right. We'll talk about what is briefly about the BMC Helix containerization, why we have it, what are the benefits. So from 2021, BMC Helix ITOM and ITSM is being deployed using containers. Containerizing BMC Helix ITSM and ITOM offers several benefits. Some of them are related to scalability, that allowing the containers allow easy scaling of ITSM and ITOM components, enabling the environments to grow or shrink based on the demand without any complex reconfigurations. Portability is also one of the benefits that we receive. With containerization, BMC Helix can be deployed across different cloud environments or on-premise with minimal adjustments, prompting for consistency across different platforms. Containerized solutions allows customers to have faster deployments. Containers enable rapid provisioning and deployment of applications, reducing time to market for new services and updates. Also, one of the benefits is improved resource utilizations. Containers are lightweight, allowing for more efficient use of system resources compared to the traditional virtual machines. Each components in containers run its own containers, thereby providing isolations and reducing conflicts between services and simplifying troubleshooting and the maintenance. Containers make it easy to manage and roll back different versions of our ITSM and ITOM releases, supporting smoother upgrades and the patches. And last but not the least, if I talk from the improved security or enhanced security, containers provide an isolated environment which can improve security by limiting the impact of vulnerabilities and ensuring that changes are tracked and controlled. These benefits collectively contribute to the more agile, cost-effective, and resilient ITSM and resilient ITOM solutions. As of today, in 2024, containers are widely getting adopted. The container software adoption continues to rapidly grow across industries due to numerous advantages, some of which we just previously discussed. Kubernetes dominance as well as one of the reasons, DevOps and CI/CD integration, security, multi-hybrid and multi-cloud environments. Containers allows for seamless portabilities of applications across hybrid and multi-cloud environments. And thus, this is also taken as one of our high-level benefits for customers and companies moving and adopting to container softwares. Container orchestration, BMC believes that Kubernetes is the foundation for containerized architecture. We believe with the widespread industry support and enabling automated industrialized process. These points which I talked about are also mentioned on the screen. Service-based architecture automatically orchestrated for your applications, including storage and DNS. Kubernetes remain the go-to container orchestration tool for most of the container orchestrated and containerized software. In 2024, it is nearly impossible in container environment to not expect Kubernetes support or to not expect Kubernetes dominant due to its strong community support, scalability, ability to manage large and complex containerized applications across hybrid and multi-cloud environment. They're highly available and super fast scaling. The softwares run optimized with minimal human interventions. It allows observability into the applications in upward and downwards to the infrastructure, and with minimal dependencies relying on the CPU RAM for highly portable workloads. BMC Helix containerized ITSM and ITOM solutions are, BMC is committed to bring the best in breed technology so that customers can deploy and run the solutions, BMC Helix ITSM and ITOM, anywhere across the IT infrastructure landscape, whether it be BMC Helix Cloud, whether it's be on-premises, private cloud, public cloud, you name it, and you can deploy it. We move to the interesting part, and I'm sure you all are excited to know, is what is latest, what are the currently available or nearly currently immediately available with our release plan for this month items that the customers can leverage for Helix ITSM and ITOM. Briefly about this, our latest Helix Helix versions brings in support for latest technologies, Service Mesh, Cilium, Service Mesh supports using Cilium, Nginx Plus Ingress Controller, OpenSearch client in all the apps, and DB cleanup scripts for Postgres and Oracle, cluster Redis support, some of which we'll detail in the following slides. Talking about the latest support for on-premise technologies and the higher DB versions, there are the current Helix ITSM and ITOM versions support Kubernetes 126 to 130. They support OpenShift version 412 to 415. On the Helm side, we have extended our support to Helm 3.15, thereby extending the bracket to 311 to 315. On the Nginx side, Ingress side, we have extended our support to 1.11, thereby having the support for 1.8.1, 1.9.3, 1.9.5, 1.9.6, and 1.11.1. Our latest Helix ITSM version is designed to support the following versions of the database. Postgres version would be 15.x and MS SQL database version would be 2022. Talking about the service mesh end-to-end encryption, for Cilium, for service mesh end-to-end encryption to secure and manage the service to service communications. With this, many of our customers in the previous had requested for requirements to encrypt data in the transit. And this is what we had prioritized for this upcoming release. And with ITOM current version, it is available. So Kubernetes, we currently offload the TLS at the load balancer. And the structure architecture was designed in a way that all would communications between the pods in the cluster are unsecured in our SaaS and on-premise containerized architecture. With Cilium being installed and mostly managing all the pods and applications, now applications would normally operate with Cilium without any defect and performance issues. This would allow the traffic coming from Nginx ingress to the applications to be fully encrypted using Cilium service mesh. Also, the traffic coming from applications to the data lake components is fully encrypted using the Cilium service mesh, allowing and facilitating pod-to-pod encryption. Our current releases improvises the security by offering and standardizing all the images on Alpine. This applies to all the container images that have been pending to not transition to Alpine-based images. So now all of our container artifacts images are standardized on the Alpine, thereby improving the security. As part of the plugins, as part of this ITSM 23304, the release which is planned for this 2nd of December tentatively, we would be releasing a feature to separate email engine from the server. The problem was that email engine currently was integrated with the server, and any issues requiring a restart of the email engine had a force to restart the entire pod. By decoupling the email engine from the server, it can now be restarted independently without affecting the rest of the pods. We will be adding more pods with our upcoming release. Some of the pods we would be adding many pods, which would be the names of which the pods would be released with the upcoming release. We will be test to try to optimize and overall resource utilization out of the box with this current approach. We are separating out plugin servers into individual containers. Separating the plugin servers into the individual containers involves deploying each plugin server as its own containerized service. If you see on the right, currently the architecture was different, wherein all the plugin containers were treated as one container. And now with this, we are separating out all the plugin servers into the individual containers. The isolation would allow each plugin to be managed, deployed, and scaled independently of each other. It brings in increased flexibility, wherein each plugin can be updated and restarted without affecting the others. Additionally, this approach also provides improved security and resource management by providing the right and clear, definite boundaries for resource allocation for each plugin servers. When we talk about what is next, which I'm sure that you all are excited to know, what is tentatively being planned as the big items of FY25, we plan to bring and allow customers to bring their own logging, which will allow the customers to bring their logging solutions and stream the logs to a third-party solutions. We would also allowing the customers to use BHOM on an observability stacks to monitor their on-premises. So monitoring using BHOM on an observability stack. Currently, we have two DB refresh pipeline options available for two of the database flavors supported in ITSM, that is Postgres and SQL. Finally, we would be releasing the support for DB refresh pipeline for Oracle. Then is minimize IS footprint, minimize innovation suite studio footprint. We are working to add a flexibility to allow all the customers wishing to use this feature to choose what to load. We will support a core flavor where you will be installing everything, but then the customers will have the choice to not load many of the ITSM and AI server forms, which could allow you all to only run the custom applications and thereby to run a minimized footprints Helix. We would also be extending and bringing support for encrypted database connections for Postgres, encrypted database connections for Oracle, and last but not the least, encrypted database connections for SQL. With this, we also wish to bring in support for the latest DB flavors of Postgres, SQL, and Oracle. And last but not the least, high on the radar, we want to ensure on-premise release, on-premise software's compliance with FIPS 140 or FIPS 140, 140-2 or 140-3. We would move to the next item, which is about on-prem support policy. What are the rationale behind? We have revamped and revised our support policy this year. So we'll talk briefly about what are the rationale behind the revised support policy. We will talk about how the new support policy looks and how's the revised release cadence looking like. BMC Helix on-premise containerized platform support is currently aligned with Kubernetes lifecycle. Our earlier release cycles were based, our earlier support period were limited to 5 years. Now we have shortened our release support periods to 18 months, bringing in 12 months of active support and 6 months of active month maintenance mode. 18 months of support instead of the 5 years is the decision taken on in order to understand that, like I said, that these are based and aligned with Kubernetes lifecycle. Kubernetes has notably a faster life cycles compared to many other technologies, and this is driven by many factors. Primarily, one of the factors being open source in nature and community-driven development. Our ITSM release cadence as of today, Helix ITOM on ITSM on-prem is every 6 months and ITOM is every 3 months. We are revising our Helix ITSM release cadence as well to a quarterly release every 3 months. Going forward, for I'll briefly talk about the release cadence for ITSM and ITOM and explain them in the next slide. When I say your success is important to us, we will work hard to support you. On-premise is a first-class citizen with BMC. In the past, BMC focused mostly on the SaaS, but this is no longer true. On-premise is considered as an extremely important, and we will be here to stay. Every release for SaaS is now being packed and released also to on-prem so that this allows you to receive the most up-to-date features quickly. And I'll explain more in the release cadence coming into the later slide. With the release cadence, with the support ITSM and ITOM release support policy being revised, this is how the current release product support policy looks like. The version 21.05.01, 21.05.02, 21.3.03, 21.3.04, 21.3.05 are already end of version support. 21.306, 21.3.10, and 22.105 are in limited support, out of which 21.306 is nearly the end of support, reaching on the 1st of December. 22.106, 23.301, and 23.303 are still in full support. For 22.106, there was an extension made, not adhering to the release lifecycle to allow customers to upgrade to this version so that they can be allowed to upgrade to the latest integration as a stage to take for upcoming versions. In ITSM, our teams currently issue a release and then 2 patches for security and quality. And we take the second pack and ship it for on-prem. So this is how our on-premise release is going to look like. We will be having quarterly releases we'll be having release every 3 months. So we'll be having quarterly releases in FY25, 25 1.2, 25.2.2, 25.3.2, and 25.4.2 are going to be our on-premise releases for FY25 ITSM. In the ITOM, this is how after the support policy revamp, this is how the product supports look like. For 21.05, 21.3.02, 22.2, the versions have reached the end of support. 22.4, 23.102, and 23.202 are already in limited support now. And 23.4, 24.1, 24.2, 24.3, 24.4 are currently in full support. In ITOM, they do 2 patches with features And third one to stabilize that we pick up for on-premise solution, on-premise release. So for ITOM operations management release cadence in FY25, our releases would be 25.1, 25.2, 25.3, and 25.4. Yeah, that's it. And last but not the least, I'll move to the product security policy, for which I'd like to invite my colleague Yogesh to speak on it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Bhash. Yeah, so product security is critical pillar of our organization, and we maintain our commitment to deliver the secure solutions. It's not just about like talking. We have integrated product security, all those security in the development life cycle. So it's SDLC, and that's how we are ensuring that our products that we are currently releasing are safe and secure. So as part of security process, we are performing our code, the containers, all those types of scanning, different activities on almost daily basis. And we are giving this all those vulnerabilities as a feedback to our developers so that they can immediately mitigate those vulnerabilities in the current release itself. Um, just to support that, we are also ensuring that like all those scannings are happening at daily basis, and we are scrutinizing all those vulnerabilities and ensuring that we analyze those vulnerability and prioritize those vulnerability fixes. As a part of our product release, we are just ensuring that all those vulnerabilities have been addressed, and we do provide minimal exceptions so that product should be the safe and secure to use. We are committed to resolve all those reported vulnerability. That's why we are, as a part of Shipleft, we are proactively identifying those vulnerability and acting on those vulnerabilities just to ensure that it's getting mitigated before the release itself. Next slide, please. So container security is the critical aspect as we are containerizing our products. You must have probably seen that many vulnerabilities getting reported against the containers. It might be the base image or it might be the third-party libraries. So how we are mitigating those vulnerabilities, right? So, CVSS score. So we are currently getting CVs released in the public. That might have some additional, some vendors, they are also publishing those CVs, those vulnerabilities, and providing their own identifier. But what we hear referring in the BMC is CV vulnerabilities published by the NVD, and we are referring the CVSS score just to that will help us in prioritizing the critical and high severity vulnerabilities. As we are continuously getting those vulnerabilities, we are ensuring that we prioritize the critical and high severity vulnerability first. And also, after the analysis, if any vulnerability, if we identify it is exploitable, we are ensuring that that specific vulnerability is immediately fixed and should be part of that release. Also, you might have heard that Log4j kind of vulnerability. So suppose if we identify any critical vulnerability getting published, and if you find that BMC products are vulnerable to those vulnerabilities, we are ensuring that those kind of vulnerabilities should be immediately fixed, and we deliver the hot fixes and patches for such vulnerabilities. And also, there are as we are getting a lot of vulnerabilities, right? And sometimes it might be the major architecture changes, major component changes required, or sometimes even the fixes are not available in the for those specific third-party components. So for such cases, we are expecting from the customer that they should have some exception process available, so that we will ensure that as and when we get those fixes from the third-party vendors, we'll ensure that those fixes are included in our product and will deliver the safe product. Also, we are ensuring that since those vulnerabilities are continuously reported on daily basis and we are fixing those vulnerabilities in our all the upcoming releases, we would like to request the customers that if they can use our latest and greatest version, so that they will get all the vulnerabilities that are previously reported and will have the safe and secure product in their production environment. All right, thank you. So with that, I will hand over to the Bhavesh.
Thanks, Yogesh. With this deck, we included resource links that contains and links to some of the useful resources that you all can access and get thorough with on-premise support policy, how the on-prem to SaaS migration has been one of the recordings of on-premises to SaaS migrations, and remedy to Helix on-premise migrations overview and troubleshooting. I'm sure when you receive this link, you'll have this deck, you'll have the link of these sessions included. Thank you. And Sam, over to you.
Yeah, so just quickly before we get into Q&A, so those links that we've shared, they're all on our webinar page. I will be sharing that link. So where most of you have registered before, if you want to find any of the pre or post recordings, they're all on one page on BMC Communities. All our recordings go out onto YouTube. So if you're not already subscribing to our YouTube channels, you can find a lot of content there. That also includes some of our short videos on how to fix certain problems, troubleshooting. I'll be sharing those in the next 24 to 48 hours. We will also be sharing the Q&A that we ran this morning on the same session and anything else that we feel is useful. So we'll now move to the Q&A. I know we've had quite a few questions that have been answered and there's still a few that's needing to be answered. So there is a first question. I'm not sure who asked this, so I will just read that out. If the person that has asked it wants to come off mute, I'm going to start unmuting everyone. The first question to the team was, why OpenShift 4.16 is not supported yet 23.301? Why are you so late? Is there a possibility of certifying it? So I'll just ask that question to the wider team. If someone can answer that question, and I will start unmuting.
Sure. So we're testing it right now as we speak, and it's supposed to go out by the end of the month. We're certifying our latest versions on that and the coming versions as well. And after we finish 4.16, we plan on going to certify 4.17 as well.
Thanks, Raquel. We do also have another question. It may have been the same person. Any plans to replace Jenkins with GitOps?
So there's an ongoing effort to build a Helm-based mechanism for deployment. This will take us several months to a year because it's a big effort. And we're going to start working on the ITOM side of the house, which is scriptless today, and then we'll go to ITSM. So basically there is an effort going there, but like I said, it will take us time.
Thank you. We have a question from Galame, which has just been answered by Bhavesh. I don't know if you can just recap that question. I'm going to see if he's still on here in case he's got any further questions. I don't know if you can hear us, Galame.
So yes, it's Guillaume. Yes.
Hello.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, so somebody just replied that you're planning to deliver the pipeline to refresh on 2025. Is that right?
The first release of FY25, yeah. So we are planning to deliver this DB refresh pipeline for Oracle database tentatively around the first release of 2025, yeah.
Okay. I don't know if there's other people that want to ask questions. I mean, I just have two comments. One is the Ansible 2.16 situation that caused a lot of headaches for us because we had to ask exception from the VP of IT services to have Ansible 2.15 because of the medium security issues that were addressed in 2.16 and 2.17. So, so the question for the managers is there a plan for BMC to use the latest libraries of whatever open source software at the time of build so that...
Yeah,
go ahead.
This is also being planned in the first release of the FY25. We have plans to support in Ansible 2.17 and now the 2.18 is available as well. So we might try to push support for Ansible 2.18 in the deployment engine in the first release of FY25.
Okay.
Did I answer?
Yes, and this is just more of a comment, although maybe you can give us an update. Every time that we ask questions to BMC support on the on-premise containerized questions, they're just not prepared to answer the questions. For like 90% of the questions, the issues, whatever, it has to be escalated forward to R&D. And we've asked BMC several times, when are you going to get the support organization up to par so it doesn't have to be escalated? Because when you involve R&D, the process is very tedious and it's very inefficient. You know, there's back and forth between the support guy and the R&D guy. It takes days and days and days and days, and you don't get an answer until after a week. And then if you want to, you know, meet with somebody from R&D, it's just impossible. And we're not live yet, but we're very afraid that when we go live, if a problem happens, BMC support is simply not going to be capable of helping us out. And R&D is not support, right? R&D, they have their own working hours. They don't work weekends. So how is this going to get better?
First of all, my sincere apologies if you had an experience like this with our support. I would like to, really know further details to it in order to understand, is there any specific category of, the issues that the support is not able to address? Because, we, on the other hand, our support is pretty capable of handling issues related to on-premise. There could be a categories, or there could be specific categories which could be new to them and they might need training on that. We'll ensure that they are fully educated and revamped
just
on
to
those
give you an
fronts.
example, Bhagwash. So first of all, it seems like some support personnel don't have access to an on-prem containers, although I don't understand why they don't have access. I mean, when you ask them simple questions, it's like either they send you a link for the documentation, but I've asked them, do you have access to an on-prem environment? And some of them, they say yes, some of them say no. And then when they have access to an on-prem environment, well, when I say on-prem environment, that's not accurate. Containerized environment, it's always a small one. Well, we have a large one. So with a lot of pods, different configuration, they say, oh, I don't have a large environment, right? I only have a small one, so I don't really know what you're talking about. So that's an issue because, again, the support people are not efficient, right? How is it possible that the support personnel don't have access to containerized applications, like let's say on AWS, Azure, or whatever, to take a look at the configuration of a large environment?
Okay, so let me try and answer. We are trying to get our support team enabled and skilled, and they're getting through trainings and boot camps and have their own stacks, but the stacks are naturally not production ones. So we're not holding a large scale production-like environment for support trainings, right? But I do take this feedback from you as an important one that we will make sure to, first of all, make sure we have the documentation in place and the understanding of such elements that are differing from the small or medium-sized environments, so that we can make sure those are being added to their training and skill set and are being answered in a timely manner. And to say more, what we usually do is we ask customers to contact us directly with such feedback so that we can help out. And we ask our customer success people to talk to us, our PMs, and see that we could get those pieces of information, configurations, and special items related to larger environments, production-like environments, into the hands of our support teams. We are constantly monitoring our support cases to see if there's certain areas where they are less proficient, so that we can encourage them to learn more and bring them the information they need. So all of these items are being worked on, and I do truly appreciate your feedback on that. It's very important to us. Thank you.
And the other thing, Racheli and the other manager, sorry, I'm not good with names, is that, yeah, so from a customer perspective, once, for example, the Kubernetes, we have a very proficient Kubernetes administrator in Jenkins guy. So once he has deployed the images in OpenShift. So, we're being asked to, okay, do some validation, right? So what is the validation? Well, we found out that the health check tool is not really used as a post-implementation validation, although there's a post-deployment validation, but apparently it's not the right tool to use for validating. So then what can we do? Okay, we take a look at logs in the pods, right? That's where we take a look. And then for some pods are clean. And when I say pods, it's really like the container running on the pod for a specific application. Some are clean, some are not clean at all. Some have tons and tons of errors and warnings, and you just don't know if it's not something to worry about, or do we worry about, or whatever. So I've created cases with BMC support and asking, okay, what about all these errors in these pods, all these warnings? Is this something that we should be concerned about? Because my management asked me to do validation. Validation to me means I take a look at the log files, right? And then when I found a bunch of warnings and errors, to me, that's a concern. It's like, well, what is this? And then it turns out that BMC support, of course, didn't know what to do with that. It was escalated with R&D, and then R&D doesn't know what to do with that. It's like they're asking me, is it working? Is the application working? And it's like, well, what do you mean, is it working? I mean, how do I know if it's working if I don't know what to test? And then, it's kind of like a circle, it's a circular argument where I'm asking them, how do I validate something? And then they're asking me, does it work? Because it's like, oh, don't worry about all the errors that you see in warnings in the log files. Do you see an issue or not? And I'm trying to explain to them, this is not, I'm trying to be proactive. I'm trying to see right before the users use the application, are there any issues? So that's another issue where, unfortunately, the pods are not documented. We don't really know exactly what is the interaction of the pods, what are the functional integrations with other things. So we don't really know if we're going to run into an issue. So I just wanted to comment that out, that there's no knowledge article that specifies this pod does that. And then if you see these errors, just ignore them, because it's, you can ignore them because it's just like garbage that's there in the pod that you should not be concerned about.
Guillermo, it's Samantha. I used to work for I work in customer success, but also used to work in Premier. What I would recommend, going back to what Raquel and Barwesh have said, I'll contact you separately. And if there's anybody else on here as well that are also experiencing some problems, there is a survey, and it takes about 2 minutes, probably even quicker, that will come out with all these links. Put some contact details in there, and I will work with Raquel and the team to see how we can group you guys together. And I can also go back and look into some of the support cases. So if you can give me a few examples, obviously you've talked about them now, I'll go and work with that team, because I know, going back to what Raquel said, we're running boot camps internally, and we're trying to get people up to skill. And I'm actually involved in some of these projects outside of the webinar program that I run as well. And again, I'm sorry to hear this, because it's not something that we like to hear, that customers are struggling. But we certainly need to take this conversation further. So if there is anybody else that's experiencing it, more than happy to assist. Okay.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you for raising that as well, because this is also, sometimes these things come up. Fortunately, most of it is positive, but when we have things like this, we need to go and take them forward and help support you. So I really appreciate you bringing that to the table. And the same goes for anyone else that's had similar experiences.
I would just add, Sam, I mean, I think the feedback's fair, particularly in terms of the error messages. So one of the side effects of the way that the deployments happen in Kubernetes is that we deploy a lot of pods in a short period of time, and inevitably, because there's no particular sequencing, the fastest pods, the smallest, quickest pods start up first, and they sometimes depend on another pod which is not yet running. So you might see a series of errors in the output if you're looking at the logs before the situation stabilizes. It's not so much of an issue now, but certainly in earlier versions, Postgres deployment that's part of the Helix platform produced an awful lot of errors until all of the pods were running. But you're right, there is no there's no documentation as such that explains that process. There is a tool for validating some of the configuration settings on the Innovation Suite side that we've got, that I'll put a link to in the material that's circulated afterwards. That will help confirm that all of the settings are correct, but it doesn't do anything for as you say, for what you see if you're looking beyond the simple functionality. In most cases, particularly with a fresh deployment, if all of the pods are deployed and everything is up and running, then because of the nature of containers and the fact that we're shipping you an out of the box predefined solution that we know already works, it will be in a working state. Obviously, once you start importing your own workflow and data, that may change, but there's the thing should work out of the box. But it is hard to figure out sometimes which error messages, if any, are actually relevant. So thank you for that.
Thanks, Mark. We'll make sure that gets added into the blog post as well. Okay, that's all our questions we've got at the moment. Does anybody else have any other questions? Please raise your hand or put them into the Q&A. We've got roughly 15 or so minutes. If we don't need that time, I will give you 15 minutes back. And just while we're doing that, Raquel, I don't know if there's any other pointers that you want to just make to give people the opportunity to think if there's anything they want to ask. Was there any other points you wanted to make?
Yes, I wanted to mention that we've made ITSM 23303 release a controlled availability release. And the reason we've done it is because we've updated some security related features late in the release. And then we couldn't finish the sizing testing with those updates in time for the release. And therefore, the release itself has the sizing numbers of 23301. We know there's a slight increase in numbers. And if we've given you a sizing which is customized for 23303, then it should be sufficient in terms of the hardware required to run the release. But you will need to run and tweak the numbers a bit if you encounter any issues. Since we wanted to avoid any such trial and error by our customers, we decided to make this release a controlled availability release. It means you need to have a password to download it from EPD. You can ask for that password, but our recommendation would be to wait until tentatively in December 2nd, we are planning to release the next release, 23304, with fixed sizing numbers, updated security, like with every new release, and many more new features and capabilities. So a strong recommendation to wait and install 23304. We will support the latest technologies, at least from what you've seen today, including 4.16. And we're planning to test 4.17 right after, maybe a bit after the GA, but it will not block us from releasing it in time.